Hi, welcome back to the Benley restoration. Look, last time we had a great result. We got it running. It didn't sound rattly, it didn't smoke, bearing in mind it's been stood for years. We've cleaned out the carb and it ran okay. It's got a new battery in. Because it was running and it got a little bit warm, I dumped the old engine oil before it had any serious use. I've dumped that, put fresh oil in. I have run it up again. And there's a little bit of an issue. What it does, it starts really easily and it ticks over lovely and it revs up. But the problem is when you rev it up, the revs don't die. And I thought, oh, is it a sticking slide in the carb? And I don't think it is, because when you twist the twist grip, you can hear the slide bottoming every time. So it's not the slide sticking open, I don't think, unless it is when it's running. But I'm pretty sure it isn't that. So when it was ticking over, I did the old trick, because that running on where the revs don't die can be a few things normally. One of them is it's running lean, because the inlet manifolds are leaking. Well, I've sprayed WD-40 on the inlet manifolds with it ticking over, and if it was sucking in air then the WD-40 gets sucked in and the revs normally go up a little bit, or it'll upset it in some way, so you know the WD-40 is getting in there. Well, I've done that and it doesn't seem to make any difference. So I was a little bit stumped. We've got a clean carb, the inlet manifolds aren't leaking, but it's still running on. You rev it up and it just stays at whatever revs you leave it at. So I was a little bit dumbfounded by it, because whenever I've had that before, it has been an inlet leak. But that doesn't seem to be the case, weirdly, on this. So I rang my great mate Alan Milliard up, who some of you may know. He's an absolute genius. He welds extra cylinders on engines, and he's made like Kawasaki V12s and the inline triples. He's made 5s of them. He's a genius, and he's also very fond of these little sort of 70s, 80s or older Hondas. And I said, Alan, this thing's running on me. Have you got any ideas what I can look at? And he told me to take, the timing is done with points, which I've already gapped those and just given them a quick check. But there's a mechanism behind that advances the timing as the revs go up, because the timing needs to change as the revs increase, and that's a mechanical thing with bob weights and springs. And he said if that sticks advanced, it can make it run on. So look, I haven't been in there, I haven't checked it, I don't know if they're going to be rusted and awful, or they could be immaculate, and that's not the problem. But I'm at a bit of a point where I've got to start eliminating stuff. And I don't think it's the inlet. I think the carb's clean enough, it runs okay. So I'm going to delve in there, which means taking this cover off, taking the points plate off and the crankshaft bolt, and then the advanced mechanism is behind that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to delve in here and just check the automatic advanced mechanism. So here we go. I've got my cup of tea on, as always. So yes, so let's get this cover off and then get the timing plate off, and then we'll go from there. So I did have this off a little while ago now to check the points gap and just clean the points before I tried to fire it. So if we get this cover off, I've got a tray for the bits, which is always, I nearly lost that one, which is always a good thing to do. I didn't do these up tight when I did the timing, because I thought I might be delving in here again just to check it and get it absolutely spot on. It's pretty near spot on now. That's why it starts okay and runs okay. But yeah, I didn't put them properly tight because I'm not riding anywhere and I wanted easy access in case exactly what has happened happened. I'm hoping that this mechanism is all crudded up and rusted, and that I can clean it up and get it working again. The only thing I will say, when I did do the points, I did look in the inspection hole, and you can see a bit of this mechanism just through a small hole, and it didn't strike me as being looking particularly awful. So there's the cover off with the screws. So the thing we want is behind this plate. So what we've got to do is get this plate out, take that off, and then we'll be able to get the mechanism off. Right, so I'm going to remove this plate. Now obviously I've got to take the wires off the points, which is here and here. And it's always great. Look, modern technology is fantastic. In the old days you couldn't do this. Just take a photo of it so you know where the wires go, then there's no argument. so I know the green one goes there and there. I'll probably remember, but if I don't, in my befuddled old age, I can just call this picture up and I know exactly where it goes. And this is a really helpful thing now with phones, that you can just photograph stuff. You know, you don't have to get the photos developed, you just go for it. So right, that's that wire off. I'm going to have to take that wire off, but you know what, I might leave it on. I don't want to get involved with all the little washers and spacers. I could leave that dangling carefully, or tie it, cable tie it through a hole up here onto this HT lead we've still got to cut. So I am going to take off this plate now, if I can, with that, before I remove this. Just these 3 crosshead screws. I'll put those in there, then I know they come from here, rather than end up with a... Always try and sort of like put stuff where it's obvious where it comes from. I know it's up from under that cover. That's that. Now before I release this one, I'm just going to put a timing mark that I can line up, and then it's only a guideline. It's just so you know, because when that's off, you think this is obvious now, but when that's off and it's been hanging up here, maybe for a little while, if I get a problem with this and have to source another mechanism, I know they're difficult to get, I know I can put it back there and it'll be not a million miles out from where it was. So put 2 on, and then you can bolt that back on. I notice it's pretty up the end of the slot, which may mean the points are worn, but it's been running okay. I'm pretty sure that's nothing to do with the issue we've got. I'm going to try and leave that cable on. I might have to remove it, but we'll try not to, just to save a bit of time putting it back together. There we go. So look, that should lift out now. No, I can't get it. I've got to take that nut off. I was hoping to get that off first, but I can't. So now I've got to take this nut off and that one. And we're going to have to lock the back wheel to do that. So I'm just going to put that through there. It'll say put the back brake on in the manual, but how you put the back brake on your own and do this, well, it's impossible. Put it in gear as well. Right, that's in top gear. Now I need this one. So you've got to take this nut off first, and then the big centre one. Looks like a 10mm, yeah. There we go, that one's come off. So there's that one. There's that one. That's got the keyway in it. Put that there. Just trying to hold that there. Hey, that went to the condenser. I'm going mad. I didn't need to take that off. Right, there's the unit we're talking about. Now that came off that way up. And it's got a keyway there that slots into there. So that's how you locate it. That's the way up it's going. And there's the timing marks. There's F for fire. That's for top dead. And I'm assuming that's advance. So a little bit worryingly, that doesn't seem bad, and that seems to return. So, but we can strip this thing down and clean it and re-lube it all. and just check it. Well, that doesn't seem bad at all to me. So maybe it isn't this thing. But we'll get it apart, which is take these little circlips out. Then you can get the arms off and we can get the whole thing apart. But you've got to look, there should be an ident mark, which is there, because that can go on the other way up. So you have to check you get it the right way. And normally there's a little mark on them. There, it's on the back. So that mark there lines up with that mark on the cam. So it's important you can get this 180 degrees out, and then you'll never get it timed correctly. So I don't think there's a problem with this, but anyway, hey ho. Let's get it apart and have a look. Where did that go? Yeah. Right, that goes that way up. Got it. Right, that's that one. Come off. It is very dry. Okay. Right, now, there's a washer under there. So here we go, we'll pop this. This is just brake cleaner. I'll leave that in there. There's a groove in that. There is a groove to retain grease. So we'll just give this a clean up. Don't need to go too much. This isn't as bad as, to be honest with you, I was hoping this was going to be all rusted, horrendous. There's not really an awful lot wrong with this. But at least now we can rule this out, and that's what you do. If it still doesn't run right, you can just know that you've done this. And if someone says to you, oh, have you checked the advance mechanism? Yeah, we have. We've cleaned it. We've taken it all out. It's all immaculate. It's all re-greased, and it's lovely. And you know it's not this. That's assuming it's got the right one in it. So just get all the old crud off here. We'll re-grease this when we put it back together. There's a tiny bit of rust on these pins, but nothing really to write home about. Not so you think it will cause that kind of issue, to cause the running on that it is. So one other thing I might do, the carbs for these, because I'll be suspicious of the carburettor if now I've had a look at this, is you can get really cheap carbs off a certain website, which, you know, are made in the Far East, and they really are dirt cheap. They're like 30 quid. And a friend of mine fitted one and said it transformed his bike. And so, and other people say they're absolute rubbish. But if I get one, look, for the price of 30 quid, I can put it on and just see what it does, and it might change it. If it does exactly the same with another carb on, then you know it is something else that's on the bike. So I'm just working on a process of elimination, and hopefully, eventually, I will get there. And I'm not too proud to ask other people. That's why I asked my mate Alan. He's a genius, and he said, do this first. So here we are. He said, rule this out or rule it in. I'll just leave that soaking in there. Let me get the other one out. Leave that soaking. Now this is the one, I don't know if you can see it, there's a groove right where that brush is. That'll have old grease in. Get all that out, because that can cause it to stick. And you have to refill it with grease, not overpack it, because you don't want this grease flying out and getting on the points, because then that will give you another problem. But just get all the old grease out, anything that could be slightly sticky, making it stick. And we'll see. I must admit, though, I'll be surprised if this makes any difference whatsoever. But if I'm being totally honest, I'm not used to taking these apart. And, well, it didn't seem stiff to me with this, but maybe it is. Maybe it should be a lot less resistance on it than there was. But once we've done this, we'll know that it can't be. There's nothing binding or really rusted and stuck. A friend of mine did one of these, well, it was a little while ago now, and he couldn't even get this bit off. You couldn't turn it at all. So, and he never got it apart, so he would have damaged it to get it apart. So he just got a good second-hand one and did this. And once we've got all the packed in stuff off, we'll blow it with an airline. I don't know if you can see it, that groove's now clear, look, where the brush is, look. That did have dried up old grease in it, but it wasn't causing it to seize. Oh, that's the bottom one. There's the top one. Yeah, there's a bit of rust in there, look, in that hole there. So we will address that somehow. Don't quite know how. I'll try and clean it up as best I can, but I don't want to open the holes up too much. What was this? That's the top one. Yeah, the top spring. Springs don't look bent or worn in any way, so that's good. This is just a bit of green emery cloth, great for clearing up things like this gently, just to get any surface lumps off. The other thing we can do is, once we've got this back together, if you've got a strobe light, which I haven't, but I can borrow one off a mate, I can strobe it, you know, with a spark, you know, with a light, and just see what all the timing marks are doing, that it is advancing and it is going back, and then we really know we've ruled this out. So I love doing all these little jobs to try and get an old bike sorted, because it really is a completely unknown quantity, this bike, so I just hope it doesn't get too expensive to sort out, but I will persevere. One thing I am is stubborn. Right, now that's everything clean. I've cleaned the pivot pins, look, they're nice and shiny, just very carefully. That's certainly now, well, I would hope that's as it's meant to be. So all I've got to do now is lubricate or grease stuff for putting it back on. Now, you don't want loads of this flying around in here, because obviously this thing spins at high speed, and if all the grease flies off, it'll get into the points. So I'll put quite a bit on to start with, and then just smear it around with your fingers, but don't go too mad. Then right, there's the groove in here. I want to put some in there, put a reasonable amount in there, because hopefully it won't all fly out. That's easy enough in there. I'll put a little bit on just this working area here. It needs a faint smear. Let's do that washer. There we go. Pop that one on. Right, I've got my timing marks at the top. There's the little index mark on that there, so I know that goes by that there. That's the right orientation for that. I'll take that off. That's quite stiff actually with the grease in. Let's wipe the excess off. This might take a couple of attempts, because I'm not exactly sure whether to put the springs on before I put the arms on, or so we'll just have a go and see how we go. The important thing is, don't force anything, don't overstretch the springs. If you're struggling, just sit down and think about another mode of attack. So that's that. That's the bottom one. Bottom one on there. That one on there. tiny bit in those. It's the bottom one, just put a tiny bit in there. It's got to come up a bit there. Let's put that one in. Oh, a bit of grease. Right, get another bit of this. I think I'm going to try and put these on. Right, now then, this one goes under, that goes under that one. So if we lift this up again. Right, so once I've fitted the springs, washers and circlips, it'll be ready to go back on the bike. Right, there's the alignment notch, and that goes in there. So you just do that until it sits level. That's it there. Then we've got to get this on. My marks are there and there, so it's roughly there. It doesn't actually matter because we're going to rotate this once it's bolted on. So get that. Make sure this aligns with, oh hang on, let me just check something else. Yeah, I did do that, okay. Yeah, so check the alignment. No, I can't get that in. There we go. Just seat that nicely. Ooh. Put that over. Hold that with your thumb so it can't drop out. Roughly get your timing marks right. That's it. That's just loose at the moment. That's going to go there. Look, there's our timing marks. If we put that there, that's not going to be a million miles out. That's the advance and retard mechanism refitted. I've just got to put the rest of the bike back together and hopefully I can go for my first ride on it.